everyone to Innovation Nation. I have Jon Harris with me today. We're going to have a part B to have our conversation to continue off what we discussed last week. We started talking about customer service and how we can make that better and how we can utilize technology, which leads us into our topic today. So Jon, if you can please reintroduce yourself and then we'll get started.
Well, hey everyone, and thanks for having me back, Sarah. I'm Jon Harris. I'm a Director of Enterprise Solutions for Guidepost Solutions, and been in the industry for about 15 years. And if you want to hear all about all the stuff I've done, go back and listen to the first episode where I go through that in more detail, or just hop on to the Guidepost website and check out my bio. You can learn about me there as well.
Awesome. So Jon, we talked about customer service, technology, how we use it to make not just our lives easier, but the experience with the customer better. And it kind of is leading into our new topic today, which, I want to let you intro it to the listeners, because, this is more your wheelhouse to an extent. But one note to consider is how we use AI and artificial intelligence and what that means. So maybe as you explain the topic, if you can also help kind of break that down in simplistic terms, and then we can get going.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our and I don't want to rely too much on having to listen to the last episode to get into this, but, quick recap, we talked a lot about customer service and the capabilities to do better in that area. And we started flowing into utilizing technology more effectively to unleash the value to the customer. And as we kind of look across the available technologies out there, AI, artificial intelligence, is a buzz term that gets thrown around all over the place, but I think particularly in our industry, with folks talking about we use AI on our access control system. Well, what does that really mean? And I think simplicity. There's a young lady. I think she's a programmer at Amazon, or has been. Her name's Allie Miller, Allie. I think middle initial K, Miller. Look her up on LinkedIn. She does a phenomenal job of explaining AI. And so this is kind of a synopsis of kind of her explanation. But she breaks it down and talks about, all artificial intelligence is doing is automating a decision process. So there's not a lot of magic in that. So if you think about just a decision a human would have to make. So video cameras are the most relevant and long use case for AI in the security industry today. I have a video screen I'm viewing, or a field of view object cross notification. So historically, a human has to be watching that screen and say, something just crossed my field of view. And so, now we've automated that process to notify that something has crossed. But now I don't want to know something. I want to know what it is. Is it a human? Is it a car? And so we started, the industry and designers started playing with that concept and said, well, maybe we can use field of view, and how many pixels it's taking up. So a human should be about this size of my screen. And so if it's smaller than that, I'm not going to notify because it's a deer or it's something not that's human. And if it's big, then I know maybe I want to notify that. So we started teaching, but we were still just using kind of feature sets of the screen versus actual object recognition. And then we flowed into now where it's I can at airports there's a backpack gets laid somewhere and is left there. So we want to notify that right away. So now we can say, okay, we can train the system. So now we start getting into machine learning, which is exactly what it sounds like. Where the machine is learning concepts and we're training it to say, this is what a bag looks like. So when you see this, it's a bag. Or this is what red looks like. So when we're going to be searching for a person wearing a plaid shirt who's about this tall, we can put that into the algorithm, and now we've trained it, and we're training these rudimentary capabilities. And then deep learning is taking that one step further, where there's more computing power behind it, and you're drilling down into learning upon learning upon learning, and that's where kind of those, that's where Skynet is born. That's where, from the Terminator, if you kind of have that apocalyptic reference of the machines taking over, like that's where they start learning on their own. And there's some really cool stories around like teaching machines how to play chess without teaching them the rules, just like showing them the board and then showing them moves and letting it learn on its own. So it's scary when you think about it, just exponentially learning how to do it on its own. And that's where you get into the deep learning, where you just kind of set it free and let it compound itself. So now think about that applied towards security challenges and opportunities. And, I would make the argument that AI is universally used across our industry. And whether we call it that or not, like motion sensing on a camera with automatic notification, is in essence artificial intelligence, because you've taught the computer, when this happens, do this and do this. It's making decisions. But like, are we solving the right decisions or solving the right challenges, or are we just throwing the concept out there and creating a bunch of like rudimentary if-then statements and saying, hey, there's AI, and now you have it. Congratulations. You can go report to your leadership that you're using AI in your security program. And so I think, that's where I think there's a lot of work to be done, is how can we truly invest in the right way to unleash the value of our security technology, to bring better value to the customer. And I got two examples that I want to dive into, which could send some ruffles, because this is, so when I think about like the real value of artificial intelligence and machine learning and technology in general, is to take highly manual, human laborious processes and automate them so that we can focus on doing stuff that can't be easily done that way. So I think about like how much time it takes to turn a quote around for an end user who needs to take access control system A and video system Y and transition them to access control system B and video system X. So why can't we take all that data, all the different types of integrations, hardware, software, the features of their building or buildings, feed that into a machine learning algorithm, train it on what that means, train it on what it needs to know to move it over to there, and feed that and automate the process. So if I needed to go from software house to AMAG, and I needed to know what you had, what hardware you had, everything about your system, put it into a machine learning algorithm that has already ingested everything it needs to know about that type of security system, and come out with, you're going to need this many of this hardware, this software, these are your building features, it's going to cost about this much. Or you want to be able to use this type of software feature, you're going to need these types of integrations. Or you have Workday versus Active Directory as your identity system, so that means this, this, and this. Today we rely on spreadsheets and human decision making and tons of resources to create those, from the manufacturer to the integrator to even the specifier, and it takes forever. And I just think that's like, instead of looking at how we can automate the end user process and make like the actual systems at the edge working better, imagine looking at our front and back office processes and how we could turn around that type of knowledge, where I could go on someone's website, punch in some general information, and get back everything I need. And again, like for an integrator, that probably isn't something they're interested in, because it devalues their importance. But I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on that. I mean, you've sat around these different seats on the table. It feels like that would do some leveling in the playing field, because me, as like, if I want to just like be a small integrator and I could turn big scale quotes around in minutes, that'd be something that people would be interested in.
Well, I think, Jon, you hit on a bunch of things here. And like, if you're thinking about it, like you're thinking about this from that perspective where you're sitting as like, you are early on in a project, and in your mind, you're like, why does this need to be so complicated for us to just get the answer, right? And, we're getting ahead, it's early, whatever it may be. And so you want to have that way to automate that process. And to your point, yeah, like it could eventually displace the need for that specific integrator that's currently servicing that site, because, hey, all this design work's just been done for the end user, right? And they didn't need the integrator to come out and do that. Typically, we do those kinds of quotes like from an integrator seat. Like if I was putting my JCI hat back on, we go do a site walk, we take photos, we gather the data, we look at how many points are on there, and then we take that and convert that to pricing, and we say, okay, well, here's the quote for the new licenses and this, and that. And I remember like that didn't happen overnight. It took like a couple weeks at times to get all that done. And I'm waiting on this guy's waiting on that guy. It's a whole thing. So to your point, if I was an integrator, I will say I actually would rather the tools be there to make it easier, just on me with the end user, the same way it would be for you and the end user. Although I think it does beg the question to say like, well, then what's the integrator's value at that point, right? Like what's so different between what they're doing and what you're doing? So maybe the integrator needs to change their role. Maybe they need to become more of a managed service provider and do more with their time.
Well, and that's where I think if you, so let me talk about that too, and then I have a follow-on thought. And so kind of fairness and savagery, I'll dive into displacing the conventional thinking of consulting where I operate. So if I'm an integrator and I'm looking at this, and especially right now, where I can't get out to facilities as much, okay? I probably aren't getting the big jobs that I used to get right now under COVID, because they've been displaced because of the economy. If I was able to outsource to an organization or bring on a data scientist who could, so if I told you that Home Depot had one of the most developed internal data science organizations, you'd probably be shocked by that. But Home Depot, the place you go and buy your mower and your drywall and the stuff, your faucets, they use machine learning, and they use it mostly in their e-commerce. And they did a project where this is published. So they published the output of this information. So you can look it up. They took all of their features of the different, like home decor, and faucets and bathrooms and kitchen, kind of all those different piece parts. And they put them through machine learning algorithms so they could bucket them as sets, and not sets by the brand name, but by different features that would make sense. So different aesthetic, colors and finishes and stuff like that. So that when you go onto their website, you can create a container and say, I want a bunch of faucets that match this finish, or I want to design my whole bathroom around this toilet. Right. So whatever it is, like they've done all that work, and they have like a data scientist group that's doing that. So think about an integrator saying, for readers and controllers and software, feeding that all in, and then going to market differently, where they say, hey, we just, we don't have to go out to your site necessarily, answer these questions. We'll feed it into our algorithm. We may need some pictures and some photos and some things of like your network closet so we can look at it. But now we've created a algorithm that can determine how much space you have, how many ports are open, that we can do all that. Well, now I don't have to go out into the field. I don't have to do a site walk. Do you have CAD drawings? We can ingest those too, right? So now you have all that information. And being able to rapidly turn around projects and have an information set that you can hand off to your project manager or whoever's going out to manage the project on site when you eventually deploy it. You could even do all that programming, enough about it. You could and a lot of this is done already, where you pre-program a lot of stuff and you prefab it in your shop. And so now you can be on site for the minimal amount of time, which I'm sure right now people enjoy. But that'll be something I think people will always like. If you can bring down, because you can either, continue to sell it at the same rate you're selling it, but do a lot less work, and so your margins go up exponentially, or you can, come in much lower so you can just kill it in the marketplace because no one can compete with you on a cost point. So yes, there is upfront investment, but then that return rate is I think that drives that curve down exponentially, because you can get that scale quicker. So same thing when I think about the specification for consultants or contractors, the construction, new build or retrofitting, upgrading buildings, that same thought process where, when we go through the specification process today, it can take weeks to gather all the information, and you're relying mostly on the expertise of individuals to say the camera should go here versus here, this megapixel versus that, an 180 versus, wide field of view, like whatever feature set you want. So we could take all those smart people, take all their information, train a machine learning algorithm, everything they know, and then now automate specification through a machine learning algorithm. And then every time you put one through, it's going to get better too, because then you can train it afterwards, where say, actually, there was this pole right here, and the algorithm put a camera there, but the pole obstructed the field of view. So in the future, we got to look for this pole. And so now that's a data point that we now have. So, I mean, that's another concept of it, just like us, like as you go through and do more projects, you learn, you get better. The machine learning algorithm is too. So now you have maybe this, small consulting shop that could compete with these huge design companies because they're using a machine learning algorithm for designing, and they've automated. Now they're applying artificial intelligence for design versus the shop that has 150 design engineers who are pumping out all this work, but there's a high turnover and it costs a ton. And so it's just same thing with the integrator. The consulting, the A&E firms. If you broke traditional methodology of how we feel things should work and what we're comfortable with, there's a huge space, I think, to be played in, where you could really use artificial intelligence and machine learning on the front end side versus the operation side. Because I think everyone is like on board with the operation side. And I think most of like our industry gets it, where it's like, yeah, if I can, take a bunch of data from connected devices and correlate them and understand what's going on, I can do like health and monitoring of my access control system and identify potential fault modes and determine preemptively when a reader's going to go bad, so that I can get out in the field and service it before it's even going bad, because I see this, the noise in the system. I think universally, like, people are like, yeah, I get that. But when you look at, well, how are we servicing our customers, or how are we developing our product up front? That's where I think there's more thought development that can be done and should be done. And now is the best time to do it, because it would, I think, immediately reap benefits in the marketplace based on the pandemic situation that we currently find ourselves in.
So I think when you talk about on the front end here, like, especially coming from the construction world, it reminds me a ton of BIM modeling, right? Like with BIM modeling,
Mm-hmm.
It's an intelligent way. We're utilizing like actual tools and software to basically pre-plan the building, right? So like before it goes
Right.
up, all through that design phase and through CDs as well at times, you know, as we're putting together more as-built and revs come up, we're like modeling the building ahead of time. We're like, okay, this is where the conduit's going to go. This is where we're going to put this box. So we literally can visualize it ahead of time and not make mistakes. It eliminates human error, right? Like have that ability to not just be more efficient with our time, but eliminate the larger errors that can lead to great implications and cost eventually.
Right. And think about that, taking that same thought process and applying it through all the softwares that you're going to use. So we're going to use, we're using building management system from X company. We're using access control here, blah, blah, blah. Are they all going to work well together? Are there additional integrations that need to be created? Is there hardware modules that we've left out? Well, I don't know. Let's run them through our algorithm and see what pops, or we're going to send it over to all the companies and have them take 4 months to collaborate to figure out if we know everything, right? So,
that's what
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or walking through the BIM model. So like the ability to like visually recognize spaces and potential problems and issues. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that an automated AI algorithm could walk through your space and say something doesn't feel right or something is off or there's issues there. If you were able to train it on common problems, if you were able to train the algorithm on fire code, on certain things that common trip ups that you come across, right? Those things. You do it once and then you're just tweaking and adjusting over time. And so I'm not saying these things are simple or easy, but it just takes, I think, some creativity to say, how else can we apply these tools that are out there that are widely used? They may not be widely promoted, but if you go looking for them, you can find everywhere where this is being used in other areas, other markets, other industries. The easiest one to think about is, your Amazon recommendations or your Google search, right? Those things know you. Like my Amazon knows me better than any other thing outside of maybe my wife. It's learned so much about you over time that it recommends things that I'm like, yeah, I need that. Like it's spying on me and looking at all my Google searches and probably listening to my phone. So there's a privacy concern there, and that's a whole different topic. But it's doing its job very effectively, which is learning about me with a specific purpose of me buying more stuff. And so when you can teach something, give it as much information as possible with the sole purpose of X, whether it's we want to ensure everything works. So all these have to be capable of integrating versus API and giving this output. So that's what the objective is. We don't want to run afoul with any compliance requirements or codes. That's what the objective is. And I just don't, and maybe I'm not talking to the right people. Maybe there's folks working on this and they're holding it close to the vest because it's going to be their secret sauce and they don't want to tell anybody about it. But when we talk about AI, machine learning in our industry, it's all about how it's going to make the shiny device shinier, how it's going to make our readers work better and our cameras work better, which is great. That's necessary. But if it's just like incremental innovation, then I don't know that we're operating in the right way. There's a company that is spending a lot of time focusing on simplifying the algorithms of machine learning from typical like 64 or 32-bit down to 1-bit. So it's very simple. It's called like binaural machine learning algorithms. And the whole concept is to be able to make them very simple and less require less energy consumption. And so the intent is to use them on the edge, to be able to run the machine learning algorithms. So the one concern, one issue with AI machine learning is that it takes up a lot of storage and energy and, power consumption. So, you're talking GPUs bucketed together and, a lot of server power to run all that, because there's a lot going on because of all the things that it has to do. The whole point of this organization is it's called Plumber AI. They're trying to miniaturize it, and right where my head went to was like, wow, if you could operate machine learning algorithms on an edge device that low battery. Their whole concept is they want no wires, right? So we're talking battery powered, place it at the edge. We're only going to exfiltrate the metadata, so we're not piping large quantities of data out. It's going to make the decisions at the edge. And for me, I always thought like that's the future, right? Like that the software, the kind of computation happens in the cloud. Small amounts of decision making and capabilities happen at the edge, and everything in between is eliminated. Just think about what that does to our industry when the panels go away. When the controllers and the panels are gone, because you can make enough decisions at the edge through the kind of micro machine learning and all the heavy decisions in the cloud. Like, do you even really need video feeds anymore? When you can have machine learning telling you someone's here or someone's not. And if someone's here, just take a photo of them. And if someone's not, we're just scanning and all we're looking at, it sounds like super sci-fi where it's like all I'm doing is taking like, what I mean? But
you're describing something I'm very familiar with, just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, do you need to be reviewing video anymore, or are you just reviewing metadata? And metadata now there's another devious side of the coin where I could probably, infiltrate your metadata and middle with it to make sure that I'm covering up so there's like a protection layer you have to put on that to make sure it's secure. But like, then you're talking like, why pipe video anymore? I just need to pipe the metadata. And then when the metadata tells me that something's happening, then I pull it up, right? And now I'm lowering my bandwidth exponentially. I'm just, DVRs, do you need them anymore? NVRs, like it puts our whole concept of our traditional physical security ecosystem on its head. And I think that's scary for a lot of people. A lot of companies would cease to exist if that happened. So probably not a popular approach.
Yeah. Jon, I have to stop you and make you think about something though for a second, right? Like when Apple brought out the iPhone, how many companies, were we putting out of business when Apple did that, right? Like if you think about what it did and how they literally took all these technologies, brought it together, you have a phone, you have a music player, you have your email, you have an open app store now to do anything you need on your phone. Think about how many people are using their phones now. That's an edge device. A phone is literally an edge device, has a mini microprocessor on there. We're literally doing everything on our phones, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did I need to go buy AOL software anymore? No. Remember, when we used to buy the CD-ROM that had AOL on it?
you get the free one in the mail with free 200 hours or whatever with the dial-up. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, BlackBerry went away, right? The personal the PDAs, right? Gone. A lot of companies went down, right? Because the technology just went 180.
Yeah, agreed. And that, I think there's an opportunity to have a technology revolution in the security industry if you make it really easy for the end users to adopt. And so, the example I just used, if I told you, you don't have to change any of your edge devices, we use them as is, all we need is the data, You don't need to put any other module in between. We just need the information out of it. And then we can give you all this, you know, we can take you to this place and provide you service X, Y, and Z, meaning we can monitor the health of your system and tell you whether your readers are going to go bad. We can tell you if someone used a card they shouldn't use. We can, you know, all those feature sets that you're getting today, and we can be completely agnostic to your access control system. We can be agnostic to your cards. Like, we don't care about whatever. All we care about is the data. As long as we can get the data, that's all we need. And then we'll train an algorithm that will start preemptively giving us rich information or notify you when something is awry. So, like, for instance, that, you know, someone who used their badge here is all of a sudden using their badge there, right? So now we have these data points. Like, that is going to be, I think, the game changer, when you can tell the end users, you don't have to change anything. And I know there's companies working on that today, that are going to be able, I think, within a year to maybe make that pitch. And that's going to be interesting, because it's going to disrupt a lot of inferred value propositions on our entire kind of, you know, ecosystem of security technology. And I'm excited for it, because I think if you can get behind, if you can get a little bit uncomfortable with and detach yourself from the traditional methodology that we've approached security for 100 years, observe, report, right? You know, like the traditional, I got to see it, then confirm it, then report it, then investigate it, and say that, you know, I want to take as much information as possible, learn from it, and then be able to do predictive activity where I'm, you know, addressing things and situations and scenarios, hopefully before they happen. You know, and not like the, you know, like crime, right? Not like predictive crime, because that's a whole different topic. But I mean like system failures and fault modes and preventative maintenance and you know, faulty anything. You know, that's the first place to start, where when I can tell you that you're going to have 100% uptime security system, like, that would be pretty impressive.
So that's definitely going to be a year out. I will say, though, based on what you're talking about, Jon, and just because we only have like a couple minutes left, you're kind of creating a new segue now for a Part C discussion, because which is great. Like, I would love to do a Part C, because you're talking about technology and doing things where, like, you don't have to get the end user to like do much of a lift to get somewhere, to get over that hump. And it actually exists today. I'm not gonna share much around that. I think we should do that for a Part C. But the reality is, it does exist. I mean, you know, we're taking this model of reactive to be proactive, whether it's a self-healing network or decision-making at the edge. You are eliminating human error, and you're allowing humans more time to do better things. I know people get scared and they're like, oh, well, AI is going to take over. Like, well, who do you think's writing the algorithm?
Yeah, right. Or who's training it? I mean, people have to tell it what to do, to make sure, and you have to check in on it to make sure it's working. You got to train it to be ethical. Like, there's guardrails that humans have to put on it.
Right.
And guess what? There's an unbelievable talent gap in that sector. There are not enough people focusing on that. So guess what? Upgrade your skills and learn at least how to talk about it, and then maybe learn how to do it. Like, there's open source ML code sites you can go to and start learning how to do it. Go to GitHub and learn how to code. Now you're in the game. Now you're the resource that's displacing yourself, and then now you've cracked the code.
Yeah, literally code.
Yeah, literally.
I love that.
You've written the code.
I think it's a really good place for us to kind of leave off. I think we definitely need to revisit it and like keep this going, Jon, because, you know, there's so much more to discuss in this industry and where it's going. And I think we've touched on 2 points. Now the next one is, hey, how are we going to now make the technology like our friend and use it to make things better, make the world a safer place, literally, through security. But, I guess, are there any last comments you want to leave off for the group, or for those listening? Because I have a lot that I want to say, but I'm going to wait and save it to the next one.
So the one thing I'll say is, don't be afraid of what your curiosity can provide you. There's a lot out there we can learn, and the more you know, the better equipped you are to handle the uncertainty in front of you. So be relentless in pursuit of acquiring knowledge, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable with these things that we're talking about, and they maybe won't feel as scary.
That's awesome. I love that note to leave off on. It's true. Explore your curiosities, and educate yourself, right? Like, before you make an assumption based on what you hear, just go learn about it, and then you'll understand. I used to think AI was scary. I watched The Matrix growing up. I mean, there's studies coming out that like 50% of our world is in a simulation right now. Who knows? Maybe they are. But
maybe.
Thank you so much, Jon, for joining us today. And we'll definitely have to get a part C going if you're open to that. I think we
absolutely
have topics worthy.
There's more to discuss.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Sarah.
Of course.